Okay. All right. I will call the meeting to order this Monday, April 17, 2023 at 4:30 p.m. of the Atchison City Commission. We will start with the invocation by Pastor Brad Green.
Let's go, Lord, in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the sunshine. Lord, I just pray a special blessing upon everybody in this room that serves our city so well. Lord, just be with them in their decision making. Lord, thank you for our first responders that protect and serve our city as well. And Lord, as we just come to you with matters today, Lord, I just pray for the decision making to be quick and easy. And Lord, again, we just thank you for the sunshine. Thank you for just granting everybody in this room just a heart of servantness that is coming to you just to better the city. So Lord, just grant them quick decisions, grant them health, and Lord, just be with everybody in this room today. In your son's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Could you join me for the pledge of
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we do not have any proclamations this evening, so Tina, if you'd like to do roll call.
Mayor Moody.
Present.
Vice Mayor Bartlett.
Present.
Commissioner Young.
Present.
Commissioner Greenlee. Commissioner Wilcox.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we will open up the public forum. Anyone who'd like to address the City Commission regarding items that are not on the agenda? No? Okay. Hearing none, we'll close the public forum and move on to the consent agenda presented by Amy Finch.
Good afternoon. Consent agenda items this afternoon include approval of the minutes of the April 3rd, 2023 City Commission meeting, approval of the occupational license for the Whiskey Depot, authorizing the mayor to sign the C-CLIP agreement for the overlay of US 59 Highway from 4th Street to 800 feet west of 10th Street, authorize city staff to submit the request for federal fund exchange funds in the amount of $147,394.81 to be applied toward the 2023 street improvements project. Approve the denial recommended by the Planning Commission of rezone request for 1018 North 4th Street, and authorize a 60-day contract with Pomeroy Development expiring June 30th, 2023.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? No? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, hearing none.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. Business item number 1 is appointments to boards and commissions. We have one opening for the library board and one for the Parks and Forestry board. So I guess we'll just keep them. Can we vote on those separate? Yeah, okay. Library board, we have one opening for a 4-year term expiring 4/30/2027. We have 2 applicants, one from John Bishop and one from Gordon Myers. I would move to appoint Gordon Myers to the Atchison Library Board.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other? No? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. And we have one opening for the Parks and Forestry Board for an unexpired term for 7/31/2025, but we do not have any applicants. So that will remain open. Okay.
I didn't want that job.
Business item number 2 is resolution number 3355, designating authorized signatures, presented by Amy Finch.
All right. As we mentioned briefly at our last meeting, we have hired Finance Director and Assistant City Manager Debbie Ball So it is now time to get our authorized signatories scheduled again with both the city manager and finance director as the signatures. Once we have approval from the commission, we will proceed with making the changes in our software system and updating our bank accounts. And that resolution 3355 authorizes those changes.
Have any questions? No? Okay, do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 3355, authorizing and directing the city manager and assistant city manager / finance director to make wire transfers and sign checks on behalf of the city of Atchison, Kansas, and authorizing the chief of police to sign on designated police bank accounts? So moved. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Tina, do you want to do a roll call vote?
Mayor Moody,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bartlett,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, which is an equipment purchase for an automated side-loading solid waste truck presented by Clinton McNamee.
So this is a scheduled replacement of one of our 2 automated side-loading trash and recycling collection vehicles. The last one we ordered in December of 2021. We're still waiting on that one, expected around September of this year. There was a holdup with the left to right side conversion of the steering, since the arms pick up on the curb side. We put the drivers on the same side. The truck is identical. The one that we are proposing tonight is identical to the one that we ordered back in December of 21. Prices have increased. As I noted, just kind of put things in perspective. The current trucks were bought in probably, I don't remember the exact date, but I would say late 24 because late 14 because we started the new operation in 15. They were $232,000 a piece. That exact same chassis and Packer body combination is closer to $344,000 today. So we have kept the same Packer body, but I don't want to call it a downgrade of trucks, but it's a different chassis that's not as. So we had several bids and combinations. Elliott Equipment, who we bought the first 2 from, who we ordered the one that we're waiting on from, and then who we're ultimately proposing tonight is the low bidder, with a Freightliner chassis with a New Way Sidewinder Packer. They also proposed the shortest lead time. They've got a chassis that is already had the conversion done, sitting on a lot. They're showing 120 to 180 days. It is entirely possible that we might see this one before we see the one that we ordered in December 21 because of that conversion process. So it is higher than what we budgeted. The low bid was $283,948. Typically what we would do is, if approved, we would order it, and then about a month, I'll call it, before we do the purchase, we'll get bank loan bids, and then come back with a final price after that. It'd be a lease purchase over a 5-year portion, so I think I kind of noted it might be, the effect to ERP would be maybe another $10,000 to $12,000 a year for those 5 years, versus what we had budgeted. Other than that, I would just ask for consideration to authorize us to purchase one automated side-loading solid waste truck from Elliott Equipment in the amount of $283,948.
Thank you, Clinton. Do we have any questions? No?
This equipment, unusual equipment? Is that why it takes so long to get it? I mean,
We're seeing that issue with all equipment, since, I'll call it since the pandemic or the COVID. We had dump trucks that we ordered early 22 that we're still waiting on. Ordering pickups is tricky. They have little windows where you can order them. If you can recall, re-strategize. Instead of buying pickups, we bought an Equinox for the water plant, and we bought a Chevy Colorado instead of a half-ton for wastewater. And that's because those vehicles were sitting on a lot somewhere ready to be purchased, and it's a challenge to get
6
them
months,
ordered.
though, is a long time to make something. So you'd have 2 trucks on order. So your current vehicles are all good to go? You're not,
And the ones that we're using right now,
yeah,
the one that we're waiting on, in theory, the one that would be replaced by the truck that we already ordered, that we're crossing our fingers that it does not have any major, in terms of expense issues until September. We've been keeping it going, and little things like cylinders and the metal on the Packer body having stress cracks and things like that, and the arm getting loose and components failing on that, and hydraulics having issues, and our fleet staff is keeping it together, but that truck will probably not be something that we would ask to keep on very long. We'll want to keep one of the two as a backup. These trucks we've become so reliant on them. It's such an impact now if one of them's down and we have to pull people off of other crews to man a rear load truck to do the trash routes. So, but like I said, we're crossing our fingers, holding our breath till September.
Clinton, on these side load, it only requires one operator
Yes.
versus 2 on the rear load? Or
Uh,
3?
If we were doing a rear load regular operation like we were pre-2015, it would be 3 people per truck. 2 trucks, 3 people. Now we're doing most of that with 2 trucks, 2 people. Then we have a rear load crew that does some small areas that the side loads can't get into. They do the special pickups and the facilities, trash and recycling.
Any other further questions?
What's the lifespan of this one that we're looking at?
We trying to do about 8 years. on
And is
them.
that the same for like the one that we have now? About 8 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because and it's also what we use to schedule for the rear load trucks as well. There's a couple different ways to look at it, like the arms. They talk about you get a million. A million is kind of the million operations, a million pickups, and that I think will be, if I'm remembering right, that happens at about 4-year mark. So we try to rebuild them to some extent about halfway through,
Okay.
the arm specifically. But the rest of the truck is, there's stress fractures in the metal. It just can only take so much. The cylinders, the amount of pressure that it puts to compact the trash, it's a lot of wear and tear on them over the years.
Clinton, do you think, you mentioned that the chassis is a little bit different than the original that we had. Will that impact durability, do you think, or?
We
that okay?
we looked at one and drove it around. They had one kind of put together for us when we ordered the one back in December. So the biggest switch for our operator would be that we're going from a cab over. So if you can imagine a flat faced truck where you're right up at the front, we opted for those back in 2015 because of the visibility.
Oh.
This would go back to a conventional truck where you have the motor out in front of you, like a semi, like the front of a regular semi truck. There is a little concern about the maneuverability of that. However, the specifications would show that their turning radiuses are comparable. Other than that, the brand that we bought in 2015 was Autocar, and it's more of an industrial grade truck, specifically made for solid waste industry. Brakes, and it's made to stop every 50 feet. And whereas the other truck is more of a all-purpose, it could be a dump truck, it could be a over-the-road truck, it could be, whatever you want to put on it. So, but it's nothing that we haven't had before. Freightliners we've used for dump trucks, we used them for rear load trucks. Don't have any concern about the truck itself.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Do I have a motion to authorize the city staff to purchase one automated side-loading solid waste truck from Elliott Equipment in the amount of $283,948?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Item number 4 is also Clinton Resolution Number 3356, funding commitment to repair US 73 highway.
All right, so I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with this. It's been a few years since this kind of got on our radar, but back in 2017, we did a KDOT project where we replaced a portion of the southbound lanes of US 73, put under drains below them, full depth concrete. And the area that we're talking about is roughly from where U Street Bridge is south to 274th Street or Road. Shortly after the project, within a year of the project being completed, as the engineers call it, an uncontrolled longitudinal crack formed in those lanes. And KDOT investigated it to determine the cause of it. And their report would say that it originated with a stormwater pipe that failed, caused the under drains not to be able to drain, caused excessive moisture underneath the pavement, which led to the cracking and then spread as it did. Staff at the time, we chose to prioritize some other projects. The drivability didn't seem to be affected, and as the 1, 2, 3 years went by, we didn't really see much progression of the problem. My plan was to go through that with the budget request as we budget for 24 in the next couple months. Late last year, we went out and kind of looked at the old pictures, compared it to what it is today, just to verify if it's actually progressing or not. There was no significant progression of issues noted. However, that was my plan to get that back in the budget because I knew it always had this, I don't want to call it a threat, but a possible implication that future funding from KDOT on various projects might be affected by it, by not acting on it. They deemed it to be the fault of the city, I guess, because it was our failed infrastructure that caused it. And before we could get to that budget process, I was contacted by a KDOT official a couple weeks ago, and that implication that I referenced was very much communicated to me that as they were reviewing 2 of our 2025 applications for CCLIP funding, that they made the note that the local match on one of those applications would probably be about the right amount to fix this crack. And so basically saying that we probably would only fund, that they would only fund one of the projects and hope that we use what would have been the local match to go ahead and get that crack repaired before it worsens. In an effort to try to preserve our chances for both applications, I asked if it would be possible to get a resolution done to commit that funding now instead of waiting through the budget process and not having a final budget done until August or whatever it is. And they said that sounded like a workable solution, and so it's kind of unusual that we would do this in this way, especially when budget season's right around the corner. But that is the reason I'm trying to satisfy that concern that they have that the city will continue to defer this project and keep kicking it down the road, no pun intended. And so that's where we're at. Back in 2019, excuse me, we had an engineering firm look at it, propose a couple alternates. They put a budget on it as $80,300 to replace the damaged portions and then possibly to do some crack sealing on some of the ones that weren't very problematic. Taking that setup, applying recent bid prices that we've got on projects such as Ravenhill, and then factoring in what it could cost in a year, I came up with the budget number of $115,000. And so that's what I'm asking for tonight is consideration of resolution 3356 for $115,000 in the FY24 CIP to repair the crack on US 73.
Do you have any questions?
By adopting this, what are the other two projects you said that would be affected? Should we
So-
not? Sorry.
So the 2025 applications are what they're looking at now. One of them is, so you're going to have a C-CLIP application tonight that's from 4th Street to just past 10th Street. Then we've got another one in 25 that goes from that point out, I'll call it somewhere around maybe the truck stop. And then the intention would be in 2026 to go clear out to the city limits and try to get 59 done.
Okay.
The other one, those are the priority, those will always be the priorities probably until 59 is completed. The second application in 25 would be some full depth and full width replacement of lanes out at US 73. So if you can kind of picture like the turn lane to Walmart, it's got some soft spots that are continually problematic. And then when you're coming back into town in the northbound east lane, about the Green Street intersection, there's a few reoccurring big, large potholes. So it'd be areas like that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I would like to add just one additional detail. In 2020, this was included in the CIP. At the time, it was very early pandemic, and we effectively froze every CIP project. So, but for the pandemic, I think this would have been done in 2020. It was just slower to restart than everything else because of the reasons that Clinton mentioned, but we always knew it had to be done, but it's certainly been a higher KDOT priority than a city priority. So I just wanted to throw not to blame everything on COVID, but it was an early one to freeze and a late one to thaw.
So as we project out to the 2024 budget, is this an amount that will effectively put into that budget?
I think so. I mean, there's a lot of other things in the budget that always come up that we maybe don't know about quite yet because we haven't put in those requests. But the one thing I noted in the report is that on our current C-CLIP project, when I say current, the one that's coming up, that was based on a $300,000 grant from KDOT, and they bumped it up to 400. So our local match is now $100,000 less. So that, you know, it's hard to just look at those two projects together because there's so many other factors that come into CIP, but those are two very related type of things, KDOT funding, a KDOT issue. So I feel somewhat good or comfortable that those two kind of offset, so.
Any other questions? No? Okay. I have a motion to adopt resolution number 3356, committing $115,000 in 2024 to the repair of uncontrolled longitudinal cracking on US 73 as described in two 2019 memos from KDOT.
So moved.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Tina, do you want to do a roll call vote?
Vice Mayor Bartlett,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilcox.
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Mayor Moody.
Yes.
Thank you.
You. Okay. Item number 5 is resolution number 3357, Kansas Department of Commerce Aloft application.
All right, so primarily this is a request to authorize staff to apply for a grant application through the Department of Commerce. They call it the Aloft program. It deals specifically with workforce development and training in regards to aviation. The Department of Commerce has been putting out several programs. There's the base grant, the sprint grant, which has to do with tourism and state parks for the most part. The Abode Grant, which is more of a housing type of deal. And they sort of package these together. And so one of the main contingencies here is that we applied for a Sprint grant for replacement of the lighting system on the Amelia Earhart Bridge. That announcement should come before this would be decided. So if we were to receive that Sprint grant, we would not be eligible for the Aloft funding. Put that out there. That's one of the contingencies. But the project that we're looking to do, we've been working with the Museum Hangar Foundation folks. They've been interested in additional space for educational activities and things like that. And they've identified a need for more office space. If you can recall, we were looking at what was formerly the MGP hangar a few years ago when we talked about that. While not necessarily in the short term, but in the long term, a facility that we're proposing would maybe alleviate the need for usage of that other hangar, which is advantageous for the airport since we have a waiting list, 13 or 14 folks on the waiting list for hangar space. The building itself that's proposed would be located between the museum and the former MGP hangar. It would feature a hangar space for, right now it's being conceived of as a transient hangar space. We get those requests. I don't know what the statistics are, but it comes up more than once a year that somebody will fly in, they want a certain level of accommodation, and we just don't have it unless somebody is nice enough to move their plane out to let such and such put their aircraft in their hangar. There's that. We have 2 or 3 flight instructors that operate out of our airport, which is something that we asked the FBO to promote that and encourage that and facilitate that as best we can. This would provide office space for those folks to operate out of, or to maybe have some one-on-one time with their students. And then the other part would be office space that we would lease to the museum. I'll get to why we were making that decision to do this before it's even built. And then also the activity and programming space and a restroom and some lunchroom space for those activities. And we have received a letter from the Museum Foundation stating that they're willing to pay the local match, which is it's a 25% local match. The cost range that they're looking at, very preliminary. This has been we just found out about this a few weeks ago, and the deadline is coming up in about a week, I guess. And so they're working hard to try to figure out, get the numbers right and get enough information, get this application put in and have a strong application. But they're looking right now on a $200,000 to $400,000 project. They have committed via a letter that they would go up to $125,000 for a local match. So that'd be about a $500,000 project. Basically, the city has to be the applicant. And so, but we can't be if we got the Sprint grant, as I mentioned before. It seems like it's a good fit for the grant application. There's a youth component to the training part, and I think that's what the museum's really going for. We have need for hangar space that helps us out on the operational side, and we have CFIs, and we're trying to promote aviation and make sure we have future pilots to address and from what I understand, there's quite a pilot shortage, and so we're doing our part to try to address that and accommodate folks that are in town. I think we have BC students quite a bit that utilize that program. All around, I think it's a great fit. It's just a matter of going through the application process, making sure that all those contingencies I referenced are not going to be an issue. Hopefully, we find out about Sprint before the grant applications due. That way we know for sure. And the only news on that is that they said they would announce it no earlier than April 3rd, and here we are 2 weeks later and still haven't seen that, so.
They put a year behind April 3rd?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of folks going after these grants, so there's probably some tough decisions to make on that, and
I'm confused what we're doing here.
we
So we have
are,
to wait anyway on the bridge grant.
we don't have to wait. I would prefer to know before we submit the application, because that would just save some trouble, but if we are awarded that grant, we will not be eligible for this loft.
So we'd have to withdraw this application.
Or they would just consider it ineligible. We definitely take the step to make sure that the priority is the Sprint grant. We're not going to try to swap it, you know.
So is this something that could be submitted in a year?
If they continue the program?
If the lighting thing goes through, and then you're not eligible for this, can this be submitted in a year under this same program?
I don't know how long these programs will keep going. I mean, at some point, you would think that they would, it's all that spark funding and things like that, so I'm not exactly sure how far that will go. I've not seen anything that communicates how long they plan to keep that going, or the amounts. The program might continue for a while, but the amounts of funding available might start dropping drastically after some of these big projects are awarded. I think we would have the information for continued grants, applications to various programs that might be, you know, that it might fit with. I don't think it's a wasted effort to have this ready. I think part of the reason that some of these grant programs, they just kind of spring up and then they have like a month window, is that they're looking for projects that people have already kind of, I don't want to say shovel ready, but they've already conceived of them. They've gotten some reports done. Which we hadn't on this, but they're trying their darndest to put a full package together for that application in a short amount of time.
Do you have any other questions?
So right now, our only financial obligation is to make sure that we get it submitted. Like, they're working on the grant application, we help finalize that. At this point, we don't have any other financial obligations, correct?
Nope.
Okay.
There would be, I mean, if awarded, there would be a, you know, depending on how they do the grant, it's probably a reimbursement type grant. And so as all grants and things like this, the city might be, as the project progresses, might be fronting and then getting reimbursements.
Okay.
That might be how it works.
That was my question. Anyone else? No? Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 3357, authorizing city staff to apply for an Aloft grant through the Kansas Department of Commerce for the purpose of constructing a transient aircraft hangar featuring space for flight instructors, aviation training and education, museum programming, and museum office space?
So moved.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Tina, do you want to do a roll call vote?
Commissioner Wilcox?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Mayor Moody?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bartlett?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clinton. Okay, at this time, we need to go into an executive session. 10 minutes. So do I have a motion to move into executive session to discuss data relating to financial affairs pursuant to KSA 754319B4 for 10 minutes? I believe we just need commissioners, so we'd be coming back at 5:15.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, hearing none.